And we're not going to cover these all at once. That would be academic approach. And we're not being academic here. We're trying to learn something and get something from these classes. We know about the third eye. We know about the pineal gland. We're going to talk about the throat chakra, the power of the spoken word, the power of proclamation, something we already do. We already make claims either for or against our own good. The energy here in this vocal center is where your spoken power center is. You're born with power. Those of you who are mothers know that when they hear the baby crying from 4 rooms away. That's energy, that's power, that's sound. That's what forms things in the mental realm in which we live, move, and have our being. That you can proclaim a thing in the spoken word manner and have that thing come into existence. That's the power you're born with and what you should be about educating. Drawing out and developing is the whole idea of spiritual practice. And that you're to come out of it with power. See? So you don't say, I don't have, I don't feel good, I got a headache. If you didn't, you'll end up with one. By your own thinking. There's an excellent example of that in the book of Ezekiel, where a spirit comes and yanks Ezekiel up out of his physical body and carries him by his spiritual hair. And carries him to the side of the mountain and shows him what the Hebrew children are doing, sacrificing children. And the statement that is made by the angel is, look and see what they are doing to themselves. Very appropriate in understanding karma, in understanding how one takes through the misuse and misunderstanding of inherited power and uses it against himself as he abuses someone else. We live in a very organized, orderly universe that responds to your command. You're born as lords of the earth. Energy already does what you tell it to do. I can't remember. You remember saying that? And surely enough, after a while, you can't remember. What's my phone number? When it gets that bad. By programming your own brain to perform deficiently, your brain obeys the voice of God, your own voice. Does exactly what you tell it to do. If we understand that the process of our lives is about perfection, development, illumination, prosperity, perfect health, then we know we have to sack a whole vocabulary that's considered very hip. It is not so hip. 5 cents worth of wisdom in that language out there in the street. Thought is power. Your energy follows your thoughts. Your thoughts will not come back to you void, but they will come back to you. I won't cite any more negatives. It's important that you know you can create with your spoken word, that you can heal with your spoken word. Some talk to flowers to get good flowers to grow. You're supposed to talk to your body. You're supposed to talk to your mind. That's real prayer. Claiming, explaining what you want, how you want it to function, what state you see it in, that you are perfectly happy, perfectly prosperous, and in perfect harmony with the universe. That's Moorish thought. That's divine talk. That's coming from your own spiritual center. If your head hurts, don't say it does. You begin using just the reverse. What the condition is that you don't want. Catherine Rudmore, the author of this book here, in her practicing years of study, got into a financial bind one day. She opened up the icebox and it wasn't filled up. She had 4 kids up there. So she went and she washed the dishes real good. And all the while she's making this abundant affirmation, claiming the abundance that God has given her and thanking her all the time. She does this around 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, she says. Puts the plates on the table, the napkins and the forks. Nothing in the icebox. This woman is setting this table for her kids and herself. And she calls them over to the table and says, "Oh, sit down, sit down." She gives thanks for this food. I know her kids thought she was rich. Just as she finished her affirmation, somebody knocked on the door. 5 bags of groceries. You know, she said, "Thanks, come on in." She was expecting it. That's positive thinking. That's a metaphysical mind. But you don't see the appearance of things. You see what you want. You claim what you want. You claim how you want the conditions, the circumstances to be. That is the Lord of the earth. By your thinking, you make it so. I'm not talking what you're going to do later on. You're already doing it. Is it okay? That's how the mind works. That's how energy works when guided by one of these faculties. Because it's also true of the imagination. I think I mentioned this before. Probably the most popular one is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's statement that he gives in the other book because he wanted to make some more money on the same information. It's the only reason I could think you. The reason he wrote the book, Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, which was almost a duplication of his first book that won all kinds of popularity. But in that book he gives the affirmation, whatever the mind conceives and believes the mind can achieve. And it's an excellent maxim. The one that is most important in terms of imagination is the one from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The psychological assumption, write this down. The psychological assumption automatically provides the means to fulfill the dream desire. The psychological assumption automatically provides the means to fulfill the dream desire. That's how the mind works.
Provides the means
to fulfill the dream desire, whatever the desire is. The dream desire is the desire that you have already visualized. You don't just dream laying down, we dream walking, sitting, standing, and talking. To picture and to desire is what makes a thought real and allows it to happen. I got up one morning, went to school, and the principal stopped me in the hallways, just there talking, and said, "Freeman, I heard you running around bragging you're going to jump 7 feet next week." I said, "That's right, Father," and I ran up the steps. No, he said 6, 7. And I ran up the steps and went to class. All that day, in the back of my head, I kept seeing myself jumping over walls and cellar doors. There's a big brick wall I passed by walking to school every day. I could see myself jumping over this big tall wall as a 10th grader. These ideas stayed in my consciousness. I wasn't consciously doing that. That Saturday, went down to the track meet, made a little mark on the ground, and my coach had put the bar at 7 feet. And I backed up and got a little exercise. And I mean, it's one of those wonderful days where everything was supposed to go right. And I just felt like whatever, because he didn't tell me what it was. The guy who was in charge of the jumping bar, just as I got ready to take off from my mark, said, "Hey, Shans, you sure you want this bar at 7 feet?" And oh, my knees trembled. Just my knees, nothing else. You know? There was no fear up here. Just my knees. You know? It was interesting. You know? The only part of my body that got frightened were my knees. You can't jump without your knees. And the reason I know Shans had planned on it because he said, "Oh, shh," and spit on the ground and went over. And I thought he was going to slap the dude, but he didn't. So they brought it down. It looked like they put it on the ground. Put it at 6, 7. But this assuming that I had been doing all week was in the back of my subconscious. And it was such a remarkable kind of thing because it was all happening from somewhere in the back of me. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. When I jumped and got up over the bar, I hung over the bar with one leg. They use what they call the California belly roll. You went over with one leg this way first, then you get over the bar and you turn your arm and then your leg, raise your leg up. And I hung on top of the bar like that and just pulled my leg over the bar. I glazed the bar. In other words, I jumped exactly 6, 7. You know, not a 1/10 of an inch more. You know. And when I got over the bar, I just zoom, felt like a ton of bricks. It was all from a subconscious level. But it was a psychological assumption that made that possible. Because I didn't know about anything about the principles at that time. In re-evaluating some of the events of my lives, come to discover that's how we accomplish or how we fail. You cannot afford to imagine failure. You cannot afford to imagine poverty. That's what David is saying when he says, "Why doeth the people imagine a vain thing?" You know? It is vanity to be poor in a universe that's full of wealth, full of power, full of knowledge. The illusion of inferiority is an abomination to the Lord. We don't need that. We are required to think well of ourselves if we are made in the image of God.